So I'm going to get started. I don't traditionally offer much in the way of introduction. People can look at your LinkedIn profile, and your website actually has a really good video on how to meet Steve. I think that was really effective. In way of introduction, I was wondering if you could start by giving us an idea of what your business is and what you do. Like if I was to ask you what you do, how would you describe that?
Make people happy.
And how?
Make people happy. Right? So anyhow, I'm a believer in grateful leadership, and I'm an electrical engineer. Believer in grateful leadership, make people happy, and really teach the foundational principles of gratitude and grateful leadership to do that. Started my business 16 years ago. I've been doing this for 16 years. And after spending what I would think is a career in the corporate world working as an electrical engineer.
So what does the business take? It's like, so you're a speaker, you're a consultant, like, do you go in and work with specific companies? Like how do you, like, what does your work entail?
Yeah, it is. So it's it involves, teaching, going in, doing training, professional development for companies, or even sometimes there's conferences or events where someone will say, we need someone to speak on this, or to either inspire us or to get us to think about things that we see every day, but to think about them differently. And really the work that I do with organizations that, most companies or business owners are looking for positive, productive, engaged people, cultures. And I just got this tool of gratitude. That's the tool that we use in our company. And we teach people how to use it for themselves and for their organization. So a lot, and it's very, very simple, Levi. I mean, it's gratitude, right? How complex can it be? But it's something that's not really, it's not always easy with, like, just look over this past year, these past 365 days, a year ago today, and what was going on. Most people could always remember, yeah, I know exactly where I was a year ago today. Like this entire week is like that. And then the month or two that followed and how it felt. And so it's really equipping them with the tools they need for themselves to be, not that, I tell people, we don't do this because people are broken. It's just a part of growth.
So I one of the questions I ask a lot of people, because I'm always curious about what it was like for each person, is when did you first self-identify as an entrepreneur? If it's not connected, I'd also love the story of how you went from big corporate to or any corporate to what you're doing today.
Well, therein lies the answer to that question. When do you self-identify?
Yeah.
So in 1987, I started working at Nova Scotia Power as an electrical engineer. There was me and probably 8 or 9 from my class that got hired. I knew for a fact on that day that I would retire working at Nova Scotia Power. And I remember sitting around having lunch, 3 or 4 years in, we're having lunch with some of my buddies. I'm thinking, which one of us is going to be president? Right? It wasn't me. It was one of the other ones. And in 1995, the company went from, 2,400 employees to 1,800 employees, roughly like that, in a matter of 7 days. I was one of the ones that stayed. I had to lay people off. I had to transfer people. I got transferred myself and reorganized, but I still had a job. I was furious. Like, I was mad at the company. I was like what I knew in 1987, and whether I look at it today and it's kind of a bit of a naive expectation of a company to not lay people off or to, do what they need to do. Everyone that left were very well taken care of. They didn't like being let go or anything like that. And I still have lots of good friends there. But that's what caused me to think I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be here ever, right? So I've got to do something on my own. And my very first step into entrepreneurism was my paper route back in 19, whatever that was. But I became an Amway distributor in 1995 when that happened. And I was horribly unsuccessful at it. I made nothing. But it gave me a taste, and I grew an incredible amount through that. But really, it was at that point in 1995 that it's like, no, I need to find something else, and I didn't know what it was. And it took me probably 7 or 8 years to actually begin to say, this is the work that I want to do, that I just feel I'm put here for. This is my purpose. This is my passion.
So how did you transit? Like, how did it? Because the type of work you do, like you're selling yourself essentially, your knowledge and your expertise and your experience. That typically takes time to become a job, to become a company over time. Like, how did you navigate that? Did you go all in and eat ramen, or had a side income, or did you keep a job? Or I'm just curious, because some people who have, like, they want to be speakers or influencers, or they have the idea. I'm just wondering how you transition. How did you make that work?
So I was working at another organization, and I was doing my MBA. I started my MBA in 1989. 3 years in, I quit. I was doing it part time. We had young kids and driving, so it was really. She kept saying, "You got to go back and finish it. Got to go back and finish it." And so in the late, maybe early 2000s, I said, "I'm going to go back and finish it." And I'm going to do something or find something when I do in my MBA that's going to enable me to go out on my own. And I had no idea what it was. And the funny thing is, most people who do MBAs don't end up going to work for themselves. They go work for somebody else, right? So that's which I didn't even know at the time. So at the end of my, while this is going on, I'm working with a coach who my boss, he was absolutely wonderful. He's the guy who would have conversations with me. You always wonder when a boss says to you, "Steve, have you ever thought about going to work somewhere else in a different organization?" Because Robbie said that to me, not because he thought I was a crappy worker. He cared about me. Like he said, "Look, just tell me where you want to do. It probably would help you a lot more to get some broader experience." And he got me a coach. And this coach says to me, the very first time we meet, I didn't know what a coach was going to do. And he said, "Steve, we've got a 6 months engagement to work together." He says, "I'm here for you 24/7. You can call me anytime." And I'm thinking to myself, Levi, yeah, right. I'm going to call you 24/7. And I left. And then one day I was home. I would have been my MBA days. I took a day off school just to do some thinking. Where do I want to go? And I'm sitting in my office at home, and I wasn't quite bawling my eyes out, but I'm crying, and I'm feeling lost. I pick up the phone. I call Keith, my coach. I said, "Keith, I need you. I'm coming over." So I went over and I'm talking to him, and he's like, "What's going on?" And I'm crying like a baby. And I said, "Keith, I feel like I'm in the middle of the ocean in a boat, no power, no oars, nothing. And I'm just blowing, going wherever the world pushes me. And I mean, I'm happy in my life. Like, from the outside, everything looks great. We have an awesome relationship with my wife and my kids, and I liked my work. That's a real dangerous place to be when you just like it, right? Not when you love it, it's very dangerous. And I said, I know I have a purpose, Keith, and I just don't know what it is, and I want to find out. And he looked at me and he said, "Steve, at least you know." And it was like, and he said, "A lot of people don't even know they have a purpose." And I was like, "Really?" And over the next couple of weeks, I would just in converse, I realized that some people don't realize, like, you You listening, watching, you have a purpose. And it could be through your work, through your home, through your community, whatever it is. We are each here. We're uniquely gifted and we have a purpose. So back to my MBA, down to towards the end of the last class in strategy. At the beginning, we had to talk about, what are we value? What's important to us? What are we good at? Right? These types of things. And then the last class, we had to do the same thing. And the last class, my very last class, it appeared to me, it came to me. It's like, here's where I'm going to do my work. And so I walk into the dean's office because I still needed to do a research project to graduate. This is now 2004. And remember, I started this MBA in 1989. So you got teenagers in high school at home. I've, come home and you guys got your homework done? Hey, Dad, how's the MBA going? Right? Anyhow, I walk into the dean's office because I gotta do a research project. I said, I want to do my research on the connection between gratitude and charitable giving, and why people give, why people serve, why people help others. And in 2004, when you do that in a business, if you did it today, probably not that weird. Back then, I got a weird look, but there was a faculty advisor there. He connected me with Kathy. And so that was 2-3 years of research, not because it was 2-3 years of research, because I'm slow. and that was part of, at least gaining some credibility to do this. And when I finished, I looked at my wife and I said, "Hon, I got to start doing this." And so I left my job and started doing this full time. And
so let's pick that apart. Start doing this part time. So how did you take research and understanding and turn it into something you sold? And so I'm picking this apart because I know a few people who have gone through a similar journey, and it's like what is the package? What do you put together, and how do you sell something that you've never actually sold before?
Yeah.
When it's your own experience, especially.
I know that's what you're doing. How did I started? You know what I started doing? Just having conversations, with my network, starting with people in my community. And my very first client was someone I met I said, I'm going to do a retreat on my way out of the company, right? As I was leaving to kind of launch into something new. I met someone at that retreat. I talked about what my vision was, right? Mm-hmm. Less about what the actual package looked like. And he said, I want you to come into my company. And he was the first person that he was second person that hired me. And I just started, some of the things that I did in that very first session, I still do today. Some of it I've kind of, no, that's not good. It continually improves, right? But it was hard. It really was, because I would talk about, so people would say, well, what do you do? And my answer, that is the question we know everyone is going to ask us as soon as they meet us, right? So what do you do? And my answers were just going all over the place, but it's really, when it gets down to it, I make people happy. And if someone's interested in more, they're going to ask more. And early on, just because this kind of connects back to how do you box it up? How do you frame it? My wife and I are in the car. We're driving across town. We go somewhere and get in a parking lot. I drove in. The guy next to me backed in. We opened our doors at the same time. It's a guy I used to work with the power company. And so our doors are open. And Steve, how you doing? Oh, great. How are you? He says, what are you doing? I said, I speak on gratitude. That's nice. He just kind of backs up. And it was a very awkward, uncomfortable, short conversation. He closed the door, we leave. I get back in the car. My wife's in the passenger seat. And she just drops her head and says, you're going to start saying something else. And I said, because I just joined the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. So this is 4 years into the business. And I'm telling people, I speak on gratitude. And I said, well, what about something like this, hon? And I said something like, how complacency and entitlement can creep into a culture and then just kind of take over. I work with organizations who want to do something about that. And my realization is that my language was all about me. Like as entrepreneurs, we like to talk about, oh yes, our mugs have these hand painted things on them or whatever. We're so packed because we know so much about it. You know what? They could care less about that I talk about gratitude. I needed to change my vernacular, my vocabulary to use language that they were looking for, because they weren't looking for gratitude. They were looking for less, complacency, less entitlement, more, right? Anyhow.
You have no idea how relevant this conversation is to our world about what we do and how to describe it. And we have a mutual connection, Dave Carroll, who literally said these words to me in the last week about like, still, I think we could do a better job of saying what you do. So very relevant. So we're going to come back to that, but you talked about your community. We talked about gratitude. When I think of community and gratitude, I'm really invested in my peer network, and I know that you are as well. So I was hoping we could turn the conversation to the benefits and the power of and some of the different variety of peer groups and peer networks out there, especially for entrepreneurs, which I understand those groups more. So I'm a alumni and a moderator, and I help with event planning for the Wallace McCain Institute. I know of entrepreneurs organizations. I know of tech. I know of YPO. And over COVID, I actually learned a lot about the McKay forums because they did a really good job of offering great national events for entrepreneurs across their network. And I joined a lot. So my personal belief is that having a trusted group of peers to navigate the challenges you don't know you have yet is really valuable. I was wondering if you could give us a little insights about how you got connected with McKay Forums and what your role is with them.
Yeah, okay. Because I'm fortunate. I get to chair a few as CEO and executive peer forums here in Atlantic, Canada. And I'm going to take you back, if I can tell a little story,
Sure.
Levi, if that's okay. This is probably 5 years ago. I was having coffee with a colleague, and my business is going. The gratitude. That's my passion, my purpose, and we're talking about how we might support each other, just having conversation, diversifying other ideas, and one of those conversations. And he looks at me, says, "Well, what about you'd be a good chair for a peer forum?" And I looked at him. I've got no interest in that. Next. And we're on to the next topic. So it was as quick as it opened, it closed. And then about a year later, Nancy McKay reached out to me, and she's the founder and CEO of McKay CO Forums. And I had a client who was in one of her groups in Toronto. And at the time, they were Vancouver to Toronto. And Nancy, Steve, we're expanding east. Would you be interested in being our chair? I'm in Halifax, And she was aware of the work that I was doing around gratitude. And she's like, I love what you're doing around gratitude. How can we bring it into McKay? I'd like to get you on the podcast. How can we get it into our forums? And so I paid attention, and I did some research on what the peer groups actually were, and how, I know how important, and we know how important gratitude is to be a thriving leader. But I still saw some of my clients struggling with time, because every time they had a problem, you got to reinvent the wheel or find the solution. And it was just like, these peer forums, this is helping someone grow as a leader, help them master their time. And I was just like, this is a natural add-on to the work that I get to do. So so I've got a couple groups here in Halifax, and one in New Brunswick, and one in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Nice. Because the way I understand it, when you use the word chair, it's the same as moderator for WMI.
It is moderator.
Yeah. So right? It's similar, like half facilitator, half, helping content flow. And I find I have a lot of gratitude moments in my month to month because of my involvement in those peer forums, seeing people turn around and build those trusting relationships. And I've met with my group 5 times a year for going on 8 years. So it's just a really powerful. It's interesting to see how many groups are going on that not everybody sees. Like I had never heard of McKay forums until 18 months ago.
Right.
But they're living in the simultaneous world. Yeah. People helping people, shared experience. It's just a really powerful thing.
It really is. And for the entrepreneur, the entrepreneur in 2021 can be seen, or it can be easy to fall into the trap of believing the myth that you have to know all the answers and you have to look bulletproof and you have to look like you know everything. If you bring that attitude into a forum, it's not going to serve you very well, right?
No.
It's a place where it is a place where you don't have to be, or even appear to be, the smartest person in the room. And because there's no reason to be the smartest person in the room. There really is none, is there? All that needs to be is a willingness to be open with the challenges that you're facing, to be able to ask for help, and being generous to be able to help others who could use help from your experience. So
yeah, and that's like, so what we do is try to help companies with the weeds of their organization, the things that I don't believe they have to be good at. Like there's every company, whether you're a butcher or candlestick maker, you have a tech stack and you have communication tools and you have websites, and I believe that nobody has to figure it all out. I'm curious, and this is going back to your current business. The business is you. What kind of support network have you put around it? Like, how are you managing all the accessories of your daily operation?
Yeah, so I automate as much as I possibly can. And so the number of software, like I'm an engineer, so process is probably is a little bit to. So a lot of what happens in my business is automated. So that enables me to do it. And I also, marketing, I'll contract that when I need it. Some admin support. I contract, and I say admin support. I've got a partner in, I call her partner. She's in Moncton. She actually is the one who tipped me off to you. And she said, Steve, you might be a good person to, be in this conversation with Levi. So, and that's just a services contract that we've been, Tamara's been working with me for probably 3 years now.
Nice. So some of the questions I like to ask everybody, one is, looking back, since you've been out on your own, you left corporate, you're doing your thing. If I was to ask you what the single most exciting moment for you has been, does anything come to mind?
Yeah, it does. And it just rate to mind quickly. At the outset, I said 100% money back guarantee, right? And I still offer it. And in fact, it's pay what you want. Like we're going to agree to a number, but at the end of the day, you get to decide what you pay. The only question I'm going to ask is what would have made the difference? What would had to have happened to close the gap in whatever it is that you decided what it's worth? That was the only thing. My second or third client took me up on that. And I'm sitting there and they write the check out and they hand it to me so that I can see it. And it was like for $300 more than what we had agreed. And I'm getting goosebumps right now. And it just was at a time when I'm doubting, is this going to work? Like that first year, I earned 25% of my income that I was getting corporate. I was working full time, getting paid part time, as my wife would say, right? And so you begin to doubt, is this going to, and the guy who did it, I just sent him a note this week, and it reminds me because I haven't heard back from him yet, but he raised basset hounds, and there was a story on basset hounds in the paper this week, so I sent it to him.
I actually have basset hound at home. I do, yeah. That's funny, small world.
Where'd you get
Stewiacke, Nova Scotia.
Oh, Stewiacke. Okay, yeah. This guy's in St. John's.
So the counterpoint to what was your most excitement, and it's funny, like it's a moment of presence and gratitude typically, and I love to hear those. Now, we've already talked about this, but no entrepreneur or business owner has it all together. Everybody makes mistakes. The saying we often say internally is, we're only look like experts because we've had a chance to make more of them. I'm curious, if I was to ask you, looking back, what is the most cringeworthy, I can't believe I did that moment, or moments that you'd be interested in sharing?
Yeah, there's two, I think, for different reasons. The first one, I was in a professional speaking contest in my association. This is 10, 11 years ago, so I feel a little more distant from it. 5-minute speech, and all your peers are there. I'm halfway through it. I forgot. I totally lost it. This is what, and this, I just joined the association. I was, I don't know, embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
What I realized, though, even in people are rooting for you. I could feel, because I remember looking at the eyes of people as I'm trying to think, what am I going to say next? That they're looking at me with hope, love, encouragement. Steve, you can do, like, they're not, but you can read it, right? Just embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
And then another time, I was actually speaking to YPO, a YPO forum, a group of for Atlantic, probably 40 or so people were in the room. Law office downtown Halifax. I had been trying to get in front of this group because every single one of them could hire me just like that. And the session went, I didn't forget anything, right? The session went great. Then, okay, let's do some questions. So we do some questions. And at the time, I would say this was a fastball. And if you're doing a sales meeting or whatever the case is, and you get that question, or you're driving home and you think, this is what I should have said.
Yeah.
Right? One of those. Anyhow, this guy said, if I show my people gratitude, I'm just a little concerned that they're going to take the foot off the pedal and become complacent and not do anything about it. What do you got to say to that? Right? That's what I did. And I was just like, no, not here. None of them hired. Well, actually, I have got hired out of there since, but nothing came from it, right? And then it was just like, the answer didn't arrive to me on the way home.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I knew the guy was wrong. And because there is science out there that says that has found the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of people come up after me afterwards and say, yeah, that's just the way this guy is. Don't worry about that. And they knew, right? How do you not know?
Yeah.
But it was just like, you feel like you finally got the stage. Your product demo or whatever the case is going to be, you're in front of the economic buyer. And man, you blow it. I felt like that Seth guy with taking his mother across the country, the movie where he's trying to sell to all the retailers, and he just keeps bombing and bombing and bombing. And so that one affected me because the impact was the reputation that you carry forward from it, right? And so how do you overcome that over time with potential clients or other people who could have influence, who could hire you? Because, that for this community, it's not a huge community.
No.
Anyhow.
No, the world gets smaller for sure. I made so I get the chance to speak at a TEDx talk a few years ago, and I did the same thing. I was just blanked. I was like, this is recorded. This is still on the TEDx website. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up.
I know. It's just, so I would say that from our earlier conversations and just, what I see of you externally in our conversation so far today, we're very well aligned on our values and interests and purpose. I'm curious, because we've had a similar conversation often in our organization, is when you work for companies that aren't really aligned? And have you ever had any client interactions that, maybe they're bringing you in to wash or to help things, but they don't really get behind what you're doing? I'm wondering if you have any, value misalignment, or how you choose your customers, or if you have some criteria around that.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't believe, and I don't think I'm fooling myself. I don't, I haven't felt this misalignment with working with any clients on this yet. One of the things that I'll tell someone, and I know I've lost business because of it,
Mm-hmm.
a business owner, is that if, you want productive, positive, engaged, more workforce, then gratitude's your tool to do this. But if that is your primary motivation, it isn't going to work. You have to genuinely care for your people.
Yeah.
You got to want your people to want to be happy, to be motivated for them first. Because if not, people are going to sniff it out in a second, right? They're going to know if it's just like you said, whitewashing, greenwashing,
Mm-hmm.
whatever washing it is, gratitude
Yeah.
washing, that it isn't going to work.
Yeah.
You're going to waste your money. And I know I haven't gotten business because I've just been upfront with that.
And I think that's probably the solution we're going to land on is putting up the filter in advance and just being authentic, being it so that we spend our time with those who already know who we are. Yeah, I think that's a really great way of going about it.
I don't think it guarantees that someone's not going to hire me because, like, yeah, okay, Steve, yeah, whatever. I'm still wanting. They could still do it, but I do think it'll serve you, Levi. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions from the audience I'm going to tie in. One, what advice would you give? And this is back to your purpose discussion earlier. What would you give as advice to people who have a purpose that is very obviously separate from their career, but they do want to keep both?
Oh, fantastic. This idea or notion that our purpose needs to be fulfilled within the 9-to-5 job or whatever it is work we do, that's fallacy, right? I believe it is. We know because I don't know what your purpose might be, but whatever that purpose is, you may need an economic engine to enable your purpose to happen, right? And so having work that supports your ability to carry through on your purpose, that is really, really important. So it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to leave your employment or your job or your business, because you might be a business owner too, right? That has this, because that could fuel the purpose that you have. And you look at someone like Bill Gates. His job right now, what he's doing has nothing to do with Microsoft. That has enabled him to really kind of tackle what he believes his purpose is to, work at some of the biggest problems humanity is facing. Yeah. And he's doing that not for pay, right? So these things don't have to be linked together. Yeah. And good for you for knowing your purpose too. Good question.
So another one is, and this is almost like a preview or getting into the actual product offering that you suggest in companies. But somebody in the room is asking what advice you would have for somebody who would like to incorporate practicing gratitude daily in their lives. Any advice or tips and tricks you suggest?
Totally. I totally do. That's really good. So two things. You want to establish, I want to call it a habitual ritual, something that you do every single day. What's your habitual ritual? Because if the habitual ritual is get up, get a cup of coffee or tea and then go on Facebook or whatever it is, that's the way you start your day, which is, I don't say this with judgment, how is it serving you? And gratitude, you can take that and change it and put maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes into your day. Record 3 things you're grateful for. Make a list, just 3 things you're grateful for. And 2, consume other people's gratitudes. Like listen or read to what other people are grateful for. And if you go to our website, gratitudeatwork.ca, join or register, there's a link there to join our community. In there, there's a course called the Habit Course. It's free to take. It'll give you more details on it. And support, because it's like, well, how do I consume someone else's gratitudes, right? How do you do that? Consume them, right? This is, and what those 2 habits do, they continually bring you back to a positive mental mindset so that you're able to deal with all these other things. So 2 simple things: record what you're grateful for and get some inspiration. And this is and that's shared experience too, Levi,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Is listening to what others are grateful for.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like I don't think I realize that, but I have a lot of private communication channels, but well, moderating peer groups. There's one for each of those, and then I have some family groups, and I have some professional. So I have like 6 or 7 different arenas of curated positive thinking and stretch, like thinking positively and improving yourself. So it's that has definitely given me a different perspective. That I feel like I couldn't imagine starting a business or leading a team or being a leader without some of these influences. I feel like it's almost like cheating. uh, because you are a role model for a lot of people. I can tell just by the type of business you have and your position as a chair. Somebody in the room has asked, who is your role model, or who are you learning from today?
Really interesting and powerful question. I just finished some pre-work for a retreat that I'm doing on Friday, and there's 10 different elements, and I'm not able to list all the 10 different elements that we're covering in the retreat, but in each of these areas, it asks, who is your game changer, right? And which I think is what you're saying, for instance, around innovation, I pick Peter Diamandis as my innovation game changer. He runs Singularity University. He's running the X Prize. And I was at a conference where he spoke a couple of years ago, and they introduced him. Like, he's got a PhD in astrophysics from Harvard. He's an MD from Harvard. He's running like all these. I didn't even feel worthy to be in the room with him. And at the end of the session, someone asked him a question like, Peter, how do you decide what you invest your time, money, and effort into? And he says, I ask myself one question. Does it have the ability to impact 1 billion people? And I the hair on my arm stood up. And so my dream, out of that is 1 billion happier people. And so this guy's on the leading edge of innovation. And so he's going to be my game changer. I'm going to reread Abundance, on my physical health side. So Peter Diamandis, someone I've never met, other than, at a conference, to my, 29-year-old daughter, Steph, who is an amazing physical athlete coach. And so she's my mentor, my game changer when it comes to my own physical health. So it's just looking for these people in my life, in each of these areas of my life. So
I'm gonna take a little bit more like practical and on your business again, because I think there's a lot of interesting learnings there. One, COVID hit. How has speaking and chairing and helping people inside their companies altered for you, when I assume it's mostly virtual?
Yeah, it mostly is. And like, if we were doing this, a year ago today, I might have said, okay, we got to move more to virtual. But 2 weeks ago, a year ago today, I would have said, to speak, no way. I got to be there. You need me in the room with you. Well, that ain't paying the mortgage, right? That ain't paying nothing. Anyhow, last year I did 70 or 72 virtual events from March 24th to December 31st that ranged in duration, 20 minutes to 6 hours. And most of them were about 60 to 90 minutes long. And if you would have told me I would have done that, there's no way. And so connecting the way we are here today is much more natural. I'm seeing, some of our forums are back face-to-face. Last week I had a forum group where we were face-to-face. Next week I've got one. We're face-to-face. But last week, one of the ones I did, we were like this. So it depends where we are in people's comfort levels. And some of the speaking and the events, it's been a combination of, we got some people in the room, we got some people, and those types of things, are a little different. I've got an event that I'm speaking at on, I'm looking at the calendar, April 28th, and I'm recording it next Tuesday. So it won't be delivered live. It'll be recorded and presented that way. So quite different than anything I would have imagined before.
And so we don't need anything around your specific pricing, but I have been having conversations with people who speak often for large events. How have you continued to communicate the value and like actually, because I manage virtual events, or our organization manages a lot of virtual events, and the expectation is that they're paying speakers a lot less for virtual, and I'm always, because I don't think the value is necessarily less, but it's an interesting challenge to have to communicate that. I was wondering what you've seen in that realm.
It is. It's been difficult and challenging. I have gotten full fee. I have gotten much less than full fee, and for a speaker, it actually is, you don't have to travel, but there's more prep work. There's ensuring that I've got an Ethernet connection, that all these things on my end, that I've got proper lighting, a microphone, space, trial run. Like there's more involved in it for a speaker to do that, which really doesn't add any value. So I always like to have conversations with whoever's running an event, whether it's a conference or a company. Okay, how many people we got? What is the value? What is it that you're looking for? And I just like that, here's where my fee is. What kind of budget are we working with here? And just really trying to be realistic with them. And like, I guess any entrepreneur, business owner, if you can decide whether you want to work at a price different than what you say is on your manufactured suggestion.
So another question is, so we help a lot of companies with some of their marketing activities, their administration. We help them a lot with automations and integrations, which sounds like a world you're familiar with. One of the audience members, who's probably one of my team, is wondering, at your position now, you have a bit of a reputation, been at it for 15 years. Are you working primarily with people who are coming in via referral, or are you having to do a lot of marketing? If you're doing marketing, how are you going about that? How are you getting your message across on gratitude and how you can help companies?
Yeah, it's good. I'd say it's still 50-50. It's both, right? But some of the marketing, I got an inquiry this morning from a firm. They have presence here in Halifax, but they're doing a national event in September for right across the country. And this person has been, part of I need my daily gratitude. She's been getting my daily gratitudes for, 7-8 years. So in some ways, that's marketing. Like you're just being in somebody's inbox every single morning is a way that at least they don't forget you. Some through referral, some out of the blue have no idea where it is. But so some of the things that I do is I'll research. I do my own primary research. What events are happening, whether they're in person or virtual. Find decision makers, and just it's like something where I think that I'd be a fit to reach out. And then I just I've got a CRM where I track, and if this year isn't the year, I'm going to carry it forward to next year. And in between, I prompt myself, or I've just got a system that says, okay, send value of some type. Try to send them something that's going to assist them in whatever their world is. And so today is a day where I'll book time to do that type of stuff. And if I can't find anything, I'm not going to force it. I'll move it forward a week or two. This is to me, it's not a short-term game. This is a long game. When someone's ready, they're ready.
It's an interesting point, because we have some companies who come to us and say, "Oh, I need a CRM," and Salesforce, HubSpot, whatever tool you're looking at is like, well, we can put a CRM in and we can automate it. But if you don't have the discipline and the long-term look to use it every day, or use it in a consistent manner, then you might as well not have one. So it sounds like you have the accountability and discipline that is necessary for that type of marketing strategy. I'm curious about, how did you get that? How did you start and learn that, or is it something that you just figured out along the way?
I think there's two things. The discipline and the organization side of it is something that is hardwired into me as a person. And I had a psychometric assessment done 2 weeks ago. I did the debrief, and the one who she missed it. She said, "Oh my God, this is the worst person to miss a call with because they're prompting." So I have that. That is, I've got going for me. And I think maybe as an engineer, just I do enjoy doing that part of, okay, let's automate this to make
process
it work.
heavy for sure. Yeah.
So I do enjoy doing that. So there's a little bit of both, but there's days that would be the stuff that I would enjoy least. I love having the conversations when someone's, okay, let's have the conversation. So I just use a little bit more of encouragement, and I try not to rely just on email, mix it up with the phone, email, LinkedIn, whatever the case is. And, something else, another is just being out there, so I want to thank you just to have this share on your stage and just extend. And that's another way that you can get your message out there, and not by, oh, come by me, or just talk about who you are, what you believe in, and how you work with others. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the fundamental things is that people like to work with people they like. And so part of that is getting to the point where you know more people and you see who you're value aligned with and all those fun things. We've already talked about some of the recommendations, and you had a really great, your change maker. One question I like to ask is around, when I see people, especially for Align, and we're interested in similar things, what are the books or podcasts or educational materials that really have defined your views on business and entrepreneurship and leadership? I really enjoy good books and podcasts. I also feel like there's a lot of garbage for every nugget of gold. So any big recommendations off the top of your head, books that you would recommend often or suggest to people?
Yeah. I've read it for the first time in high school, and read it probably 3 times since. I haven't read it in probably 10 years. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Great one.
Like, very good. Like, just a foundational book. This one is it uses the, male pronoun in it, but As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It was written in maybe 1890 something. And really, I think it was the first sort of professional development type book, and it really is really good. And other things kind of would come out of that. 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. And that was one of the ones that I read in my, in the middle of the ocean drifting phase. And I've read that a couple times. It's a really quick read. And so those books, really great. Peter Diamandis, Abundance. That's another good one. Podcast. I haven't listened to any podcasts over the last year because I'm not doing much driving.
Same here. Yeah, for sure.
But if you're a presenter, Unforgettable Presentations by Mark Johnson and Darren LaCroix, 2 world champion Toastmasters. And I just love listening to them. And they really help me get my head around, okay, how do you make this work in the virtual, of a number of people.
So I did a business degree as a returning student, and I remember coming out of that business degree understanding that it didn't really help me start a business or be an entrepreneur in most ways, except if I had to pick one course that provided real value, was on communications and the art of giving a presentation, public speaking, communicating written and verbally with intended tone and charisma and purpose. And I've since done a lot of reading, and I believe that no matter what you do in life, learning or improving your communication skills on top of that will amplify everything you do, every skill.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I mean, I listen to Unforgettable Presentations with my focus, but You're absolutely right. It is meant for anyone to be able to, communicate with more impact as a business
Yeah.
leader.
Is there anything else that you'd like to cover today that I didn't bring us around to, or I didn't selfishly steal out of you? Any messages that you'd like to share?
I just think, as you sit here and you're thinking of yourself, if if Levi was to ask you, what are your strengths? Would you what would you say? Would you know what they are, right? Because one of the things that we can do as humans is we kind of, what are your weaknesses? Oh, I can do that. We're very quick to do that. And so part of discovering, your greatness, and in terms of to live a thriving life, to be, a thriving entrepreneur, is to know where your gifts are and to use those gifts in some way to the service of others, and not to shy away from them, but to be able to stand, not to boast, just, if these are your gifts, Levi, you have incredible energy. You ask questions, you show concern for people, and you're just very methodical in how you make things work. And it's been a pleasure to, speak with you here today. So thank you.
It's funny how like sometimes your comments are so relevant. So not only do we agree with you as an organization,
Sometimes they're
well,
not.
so not only do we agree, like I'll speak for the whole organization, but I believe in the leveraging your strengths and building on your strengths so much. Our entire team in the interview process has to do the entire Clifton Strengths Finder analysis. So from the onboarding on, we talk about how do we leverage the strengths versus overcoming the weaknesses. So really, really well aligned. It's a great message for everybody for sure. So I'm gonna call this conversation to an end. We'll come back down to the floor. If you have some time to stick around, I know the rest of my team would love to follow up and have a quick chat. But I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did as well.